computer. Aha. Okay, well, welcome everybody today. I'm so glad you could join us again. So nice to actually, not have to go out in the heat and we can still meet. Isn't that great? So our speaker today is Carol Phillips, and she has written this book called Transitions with Dignity. And I've read it. She was so kind to give me a copy, and I read it. Very, very great. And she's actually a senior real estate specialist, but through her experience with dealing with seniors, she has become a goal of hers to help people who are helping transition their, I'd say elders, their parents, older people. But I said, well, there'd be a lot of things we could learn for ourselves as well. And so she's going to talk today about some different topics. One being, you got to determine your why, determine your more or less of, aging in place, and getting all your documents in order, and housing choices. So, all right, well, let's turn it over to Carol, and I look forward to hearing your presentation.
Thank you, Sylvia. I appreciate that. And welcome to all of you. And I appreciate you tuning in. This is really a nice time for me to be able to share. And like Sylvia said, my goal is to educate and equip and empower seniors and their families so that they can make positive future lifetime goals. And I just commend all of you, because you guys obviously are the people that have chosen to do that for yourselves. And Sylvia let me know that most of you, your parents have already passed, and so that this is for yourselves. And I just give you such credit for that, because I was left with, I don't know how many parents now, parents and step parents that have not prepared themselves. And we came into having to do all of it. And that's when I started realizing how huge a problem education is. And so most of the time, we're pushed into having to make a decision that we're not prepared to make. Something in life changes. So maybe it's a divorce, and it's a separation of assets and moving locations. Sometimes a spouse passes away, and then that just changes the whole dynamics of your living situation. Or sometimes it will be something that's out of your control, and that's usually a health situation. So someone will have a stroke or a heart attack or something, and maybe they will be able to go back to their home, or maybe they won't be able to go back to their home. But being forward thinking in this is always to your best benefit. So I'm so proud of you guys, because you're thinking about living in the future. I know Sylvia's got some plans coming forward, and with the idea of making some changes, and it's for living her life, to continue living her life. And so I think that we have to think about what we want more of in our life and less of in our life. And each stage of our life, it's different. When you're raising children, you want a larger home, closer to schools, you need ball clubs, all the dance clubs, all that stuff. When the kids go away, all of a sudden that's gone, and you can downsize a little bit. When we reach the part when we're seniors, that's when I think we need to really think about freedom from and freedom for, or more of and less of. So for example, with my stepmom, I was so proud of her, because she had a very, very large house. And she decided that it was too big a house. It cost too much to maintain. It was physically too hard for her to maintain. And so she didn't want to do that anymore. And the yard was gigantic. And so she decided to move into a smaller home, and she moved back to Albuquerque to be closer to her son there. And we chose a smaller home. It was still a single family home, but it had a garden area. And that's what she wants to be able to do, is do her gardening and travel more. And she was a travel agent, so she still wants to do that. But so that's what I mean by more of and less of. So some people have said, okay, I really want to pursue photography. So they want to move somewhere where they have the photography or beautiful settings, or they want to join a club like this where they get to go. I love all the field trips you're planning. So those are the more ofs that people want. A lot of times they need more of family also, just because as you age, to have that advocate is really, really important, I think. So your freedom from and your freedom for, your reasons for making the decisions. And I think it's wonderful when you make those decisions yourself and you bring your children in, or the people that need to support you, you bring them into your decisions instead of them having to drag out the decision from you. And that's a real role reversal from what I've been experiencing lately. A lot of people, they plan to age in place, and that can be done. And I look at people that have moved into the smaller patio homes and their bathrooms have been widened, and you've done all of that, and that can be really, really successful for a really long time, as long as you have enough support. And by that I mean, and usually still able to drive. That driving is a really big issue. So if you have the support where someone like your church or your family is close enough to come in and support you through these things, that could be a perfect thing. What happens is if you lose the ability to drive, then you lose a lot of your independence. And it almost breaks my heart to say that, but that's just, I've seen it over and over and over again. And so if you can't drive anymore, you're so much more isolated. And so if you're planning to age in place, I want you to think of a plan B for if you can't drive, and it needs to be more than dial a ride. Dial a ride's awesome service, but they're so overworked, they can't always get it done. So that's the biggest thing from when you age in place, is the isolation and the loneliness, and people quit eating and they're not interested in things. And it's not a really positive, happy environment anymore. So then I also want you to think about, what would your plan B be if you couldn't stay there? And so those are the kinds of things that if you couldn't stay by yourself, where would you picture yourself being? And what support would you want to have? And what would that community possibly look like? There's so many huge communities here, so many different communities, and I'll get into that in a little bit, but think of a plan B. Plan A is going to work for a long time, but then what would plan B look like, and how can you at least plan for it? You may never need it, but if you do, it's nice to have it in your back pocket. I always start with the boring but essentials. I do webinars for Transitions with Dignity, and so I had my estate planner on, and I said, Ron, I know these are boring but essential documents. And he said, Carol, I don't think it's boring. Anyway, but we were talking about trusts, and so many people, I think Sylvia, you even said, well, I thought trusts were only for wealthy people. Mm-hmm. And that's just not the case. A trust is a document actually for living. And what that does is that tells everyone how you want things to be. It tells everybody how you want your power of attorney. If you can no longer take care of your affairs, who do you want to trust as your trustee? It tells your durable power of attorney, your medical power of attorney. It'll tell your health care advanced directives. You should have your HIPAA release forms in there. And I'll tell you, it's best if it's prepared by an estate attorney. Now, I'm going to tell you this too, because we've run into this a few times where someone went online and they just did the online version and they thought they had everything covered. And then sure enough, they get into a situation where they need this to work for them and the documents aren't tied together tight. And so their medical power of attorney wasn't tied to their HIPAA stuff. So the person that was supposed to be their advocate was having trouble even being the advocate. And then their durable power of attorney didn't have, they were just set, they were so discombobulated, it was the biggest mess. And it's still a big mess. That's why I'm bringing that up. So if you have the estate attorney, estate planner, put that together, that's a good thing. And it's a good thing. Most of them will do a 30 to 45 minute free blurb with you. They'll meet you in their office. You tell them what your stuff is. You have your house, you have this, that, and the other. And it's usually pretty simple for them to draw it up. And it's usually a lot less money than if you didn't draw it up. Now, let's say you don't draw it up, then you have a will. And you think, okay, a will will cover it. And that's true. A will will cover it once you die. But you have to die for the will to check in. And then it has to go through probate in Arizona. And so that can take, anywhere from 6 months to, I've seen it take a year and a half to go through probate. And it can be very expensive because it has to go through the court system. So my recommendation there is to really work with an estate attorney. And if you go on to my website, transitionswithdignity.com, it'll have a referral for Ron Adams, or just choose a good estate attorney. Along those same lines, now is the time to also line up your financial documentation. And I say that because I've had to do that for ourselves. And I want you to think about, if you weren't here, are you empowering the person that you want to have take care of you? Are you giving them enough of the information? Can they find your accounts? Will they know your passwords? Do you have a safe in your house that you hide stuff in? Have you organized things in one area so they can find it? And if you haven't, that's worth spending some time on as well. We just went through this estate not long ago, and it was a cousin. And sure enough, his mother had passed away, and we go looking through her closets, and not only has she saved every single recipe and magazine, but in between them are the savings bonds. And so she's got all this money, and it could have been so easily thrown away. And it did support her for quite a while before she did pass away. But you don't want your children to have to struggle for that information. And if you don't have children, then you really do want someone else to help with that too, because if you're not capable for whatever reason, you need to be able to have help. I've done all my mom's books for many years now because she has macular degeneration, and her estate was very complex. And I had to really learn that in order to help her with that. Okay, so that kind of covers the basics of that. And again, go on my webinars. I go into great depth with professionals that really know that. Meredith Decker was my financial planner that we discussed that with. And so there's resources for you, and it just is helpful for you to put that together earlier rather than later. So now we're going to talk about Plan B. And what happens when you think that it's time to make a change? And so there's 4 different types of communities that you can move into. They're called independent living, assisted living, memory care, and skilled nursing care. Now, independent living, that can go as easy as 55 plus communities, which have all the activities going and they're rocking and rolling, but you have to be independent to live there. You have to be able to cook and drive and do all that stuff. They'll have the clubhouse and that kind of thing happening, but that's still considered an independent living community. Now, when you move into a different type of independent living that is a community, that's not a single family home, that usually means an apartment within a larger community, and they still have a lot of activities, and they'll have the pool and the hot tub and the dances and the field trips, and man, they do all kinds of things. So in Arizona, you can go from really large communities, like you may have seen the Live Generations on 50th Street. I mean, that's just huge, and they're incredibly beautiful communities with lots to do. But you can go clear down to an independent living that's just a home, a residence. So if you don't want to be in this large place, you can go as small as a home that has 5 or 6 people in it. And a lot of those are still independent living. Now, a lot of our communities here in Arizona, they'll combine independent living with assisted living and sometimes memory care as well. And that's kind of nice, because if you start with independent and you're blowing it and going, and a lot of people are choosing that now. It used to be you'd think, okay, I'm just going there to die. People aren't doing that anymore. They're going there thinking, wow, they've got a chef. I don't want to cook anymore. They've got a chef. They've got someone that runs exercise classes, and they don't have to drive to the gym. They just walk to the gym. Those kinds of things. They're making the choices earlier for those kinds of places. And then with the knowing that when they do start needing more assistance, it's available without them having to move or change apartments. And so they kind of like that a lot. What determines if you make the decisions earlier, which is what's kind of recommended anymore, because if you think about it, when you go into an independent community, you make more friends earlier, because people are doing things more often with each other. They're having the barbecues, they're having the get-togethers, they still play bridge. They bet on all of the football games and the baseball games, and they watch them in these big TV rooms. It's just kind of fun. So they develop these relationships with each other, which carry them through for many, many years if they choose to enter in just a little bit earlier than we normally think of someone doing that. If you wait too long, then they'll put you through what's called ADLs, and that's called activities of daily living. And that's really what's going to determine the level of care that someone will need. So the activities of daily living, there's 5 of them. The first one is bathing, which is personal hygiene and grooming. Second one is dressing. And, we take that for granted until you watch somebody that can't work the buttons anymore. And so then you think, wow, that's really hard for them to button this shirt. Maybe they need the shirt that pulls on over their head, until they have trouble with that. And so, some things we just take them for granted until we can't do them. So kind of keep that in mind. Transferring, and that means moving from one place to the other, and mobility. Like, can you get in and out of bed by yourself? Can you be on your walker and get to and from the dining room, or are you going to need help with that? So that's your mobility issue. Toileting. Continence or non-continence is a really challenging issue for a lot of people. And so that's another thing. Can they toilet themselves by themselves? And can they eat? Can they prepare the food by themselves, or can they eat by themselves? And most people can eat by themselves. They can't always prepare the food. Sometimes they get to where they just can't. Like my mother can't. She can't navigate a kitchen. She has macular degeneration. She has no balance. She can eat something that's prepared. She has no ability to prepare it. So that's kind of what's going to determine which category that you would go into as far as independent, or your level of care within assisted living, when that would happen. Memory care is a whole nother deal. And I know we've seen a lot of people that have Alzheimer's or dementia, and sometimes it's early onset. And that's a challenge usually for the couple that have that, because it will be one person and not the other. Or sometimes it's older people that have dementia. Not as many people have dementia as we would think. When I go to these assisted living facilities, the number of beds for dementia care is so much smaller. So I can say from my experience, what I've watched is most people stay in that independent to assisted living for a long, long time. And then some of them move into the memory care. Most don't. And I found that really interesting because I had been, I don't know, programmed differently from all the advertisements. You know, you think about what they're going to hammer at you from advertising, and we all buy into this, that this is how it is. But that's not usually how it is. There, in our area, there's a lot of communities that you can go from independent to assisted and into memory care if you want. A lot of people wait until the very end and they take care of their loved one as long as they can possibly take care of their loved one until they're completely exhausted and they just don't have any more to give, and there's not another option. And that's when they'll choose a memory care community that's just memory care. And we have some of those in the Valley, and they do a pretty good job at taking care of these people. And one of the things I've learned about memory care is that the numbers of people, staff to memory care patients is a lot higher, which you'd expect it to be. It's also a lot more expensive, and you'd expect that as well. But I got tickled about how many of them tie into these people's memories from long ago and kind of carry them forward based on those memories. So one guy, the story was one guy was an executive, and he got dressed every day in a suit. He always carried a briefcase. He organized everything in these big companies. And so what they did is they bought him a briefcase, and he had a bunch of files in it. And then he had a spot that was his desk. And so he would get up every day and get dressed and come there, and they would give him jobs. And his job was to go check on these different parts of things in the memory care unit. And so I thought that was very innovative. And another lady, what she liked to do was sweep the porch, because she always swept her kitchen and she always swept her porch. And so I think that we can be very grateful that our level of care has become so high compared to where it used to be when my grandparents were going through that. The last level of care is nursing care. And that's for someone that really can't take care of themselves anymore. And a lot of times they will need everything. And that's just a super, super high level of care. And they're usually they're a standalone place. And that's what they do, or they're not part of the other cares that I've been talking about. They'll be very specialized. And a lot of times they'll even be attached to close proximity to a hospital, because they do require skilled nursing in that. So you think about, those are people that would require a PICC line or bodily fluid stuff. That's kind of how I like to put it. And so that's that level of care. And fewer and fewer people are getting to that level of care as well. We live so long and have so many amazing surgeries and amazing replacements and that kind of thing, that we stay healthy for a long, long time compared to what we used to. When you're thinking about making these changes, if you're in good health, you'd like to at least give yourself a year of planning. That's a pretty nice amount of time, because you want to figure out, the first place is where and what do you want to experience. So we talked about more of, less of. And then location, where do you want that to be? And that's equally as important. I know that for my mother, I really needed her to be within like a 5 or 6 mile radius, because when I first went down this journey, I was I owned my own business, and I ran it full time. And so I had to be able to go back and forth and find her pretty quickly. And that's after she had lived with me for 14 years. So we kind of went through this progression She, 14 years with us, when I could no longer take care of her, then we needed her to be in assisted living, but that had to be in a close proximity to me. Then you need to think about, what are you going to move with you? And so a lot of you started and you had these beautiful homes where you raised your families and you have all this furniture and all this stuff. And myself included, I moved from a 6,000 square foot house to a 2,500 square foot house. Well, that's a lot of stuff. And so then I figured out what's important to me to bring with me. And then what do I want to do with the rest of it? I sold some of it. I gave some of it away. I donated stuff. And then a lot of my artwork, I have way too much artwork in my house, but that was my favorite part of my house, was to bring that with me. A lot of things we put into the memory albums, and the memory albums go through, they scroll on my kitchen every day. And, you know, so that downsize, smaller, smaller, smaller. And so you think about that, and it takes about a year to sort through all of that stuff and make those decisions and to put together that paperwork and that kind of thing. It's also nice to choose your team that you'd like to have help you. And by that, I mean, usually we have a team of people, and they might be our children, they might be our friends, they might be people that we need to hire to help us make that move, or to help us have the estate sale or that kind of thing. But when you're dealing with your parent, like I was, I needed a team of people that could help me because I couldn't physically do all of it. And so it helped me to have my team of people, and that was my brother and my husband. And then we hired people to do the things I couldn't do or that we couldn't do. The one time I didn't do that, I was so stupid. I took care of my brother, and we had to move him in an emergency situation from an apartment where he was doing terrible into assisted living, where he needed super care. And I lifted way too much stuff and I injured myself. And it would have been so much cheaper if I'd have just paid the movers. And so I just want to kind of put that in your mind, that sometimes it's cheaper to pay the movers than it is to go to chiropractic and put yourself back in health for that. Okay, so you're going to choose where you're going to go. And then along that same year, you think about your home. And we want to sell your home, even in this market. You want to sell it for top dollar that you can in this market. Now, this market is a wild market, and I don't think we've ever seen anything like this before. At least I never have in my life. And I've lived in a lot of different places and gone through a lot of markets. So anyway, but you still have people that if you come on the market, you'd like to sell your home for as much as you can, because that's your biggest asset. So you think about choosing a good real estate person who's going to value your house where it needs to be valued. When you're preparing your home, you need to think about the things that are the least expensive that you're willing to do to prepare it for. Maybe it's clean up the outside. The front is the most important thing. You want to make sure that your front is welcoming, your door is painted, your windows are clean, everything's ready to go with that. Now, let's just say you can't do that. And I've been running into a lot of people like that. So I've got a team now of people that we move the person into assisted living where they've chosen. And then I have a team along with their families, and we come in and we go through their house and we get rid of all of the trash, because there's usually quite a bit of things, you know, like the mix match Tupperware, organize it. You can pack up some stuff that goes in the garage, and then you can stage it using their furniture. I also have a company that is called Curbio, which is something worth writing down, by the way. That's curbio.com. They will only work with you if you have a realtor and you have signed that you're going to list this house. But what Curbio does, which I think is the coolest thing ever, is they will come into a home with a videographer. They'll video the whole home. And usually by our age, we have not maintained everything because we don't want it. It's a pain in the tail to have people coming in and, you know, changing out the showers and updating, and it costs a lot of money. So we don't, we put it off and put it off and put it off. So we've got a beautiful home that needs updating to make it top of the market. Well, they come in and they video it, and then they show it to their team. And then their teams that make suggested updates. And so it'll be usually paint, maybe cabinets, changing things in the bathrooms, changing things in the kitchen. Anyway, they'll update it, and then you agree on a certain parameter of work. They'll come in and do that parameter of work, and they don't get paid until the house closes. So you don't have to pay for anything, but you get to have the differential of the house having been, you know, remodeled to a certain extent, and then you get the differential of the amount of money, and you didn't have to come out of pocket for that. And so they've done a really good job on several things, and they're a big part of Phoenix. We were there. Phoenix is our top growing market of the whole nation, and it has been for a long time, and you guys probably know that, but it still is. So that's why Curbio comes in, and that's why you see the Home 72 and all of these things that are still coming in. But anyway, I think that that's a wonderful opportunity for people to sell their house for more money than they normally would be able to. Now, we also have people that come in and they want your investors, and they're going to want to buy at the lowest dollar. And you see them all the time, and they're the ones you're getting those phone calls that are so annoying, and they send you something in the mail every day. We buy houses in your area, and they're buying them for not as much money, which is fair because they need to be fixed up, and then they fix them up, and then they sell them for more money. And so I always think it's nice when you get the money instead of they get the money, especially if you didn't have to have anything out of pocket to do that. Let's see. So we know the things that control the market of how much your house is worth. Location, 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 that's number one. And most of you are in Ahwatukee because you're part of this Ahwatukee Friends. And Ahwatukee is still a very hot location. I mean, it just is. And we still have a beautiful neighborhood. It's one of the most favorite places to live in the Phoenix area. And so we got good location. Now, if you're backed up to the new 202, that's going to be a harder location to sell than if you're on the preserve or by the park, you know, so that goes back to your location. The condition of your house, that's going to determine the value of your home. The market right now, obviously, is a seller's market, which is if you're even thinking of selling, it might be worth really, really thinking of selling. And then, you know, let your realtor come in and take a look at it. So the last thing I'd like to offer you guys is I'll do a free market analysis for you on your home, not the Zillow thing, because Zillow is going to give you the market in general, what your house is worth, but what is worth valued, the homes that are selling around you. And probably in the last 4 to 6 months, no longer than 6 months, because like, you know, the prices have gone up. My house has gone up another $50,000, which is, anyway, so that's kind of what I do. And if you guys want to buy any books, I sell them $5 a piece to people that are, you know, I just want to cover my costs. And if you want a book, I'll get them over to Sylvia, and you can give her the $5 and we'll put it in an envelope and do something with that. So what questions do you guys have for me? I covered so much ground that it was kind of overwhelming, I'm sure.
I have a question. My carpet is 26 years old. It still looks good, but there are some, like, you know, the walking, there's the worn paths, and I'm going to sell like within 5 years. Do I replace it now, or do I wait and let the new people come in, put in what they want?
You can do that. That's a really great question, by the way. If you're happy with it, I would just leave it for yourself.
Okay.
And then when it comes time to sell, you make a decision on if that makes sense to put in new carpeting, because that's usually a fairly inexpensive thing to do that brings your value up pretty quickly. And judging by the rest of your paint and all the rest of that, is your house is in pretty good shape. So that would be something I would do just before leaving.
Okay.
If your house requires other things to repair in your mind, to update, to bring it up to date, like let's just say if you haven't updated the bathrooms or that kind of thing, then maybe you wouldn't want to do the carpet either, and you'd take a lesser market value on that house. Or maybe you do the Curbio thing and let Curbio come in, and they might take out the carpet completely and put in that tile plank. You know, that's a very
Yeah.
popular thing, or something that's
I
dated.
thought about that, but personally, I'm so cold in the winter that I know I would be freezing without carpet on the floors. You know, because that's colder than carpeting.
Oh,
But
by
it's
far.
pretty nice.
But you know, it's not colder than carpeting, but it costs a lot more is wood. You know,
Oh.
the engineered wood, I put that in my bedrooms. I've been so surprised. It's a lot warmer than tile. And I was just really surprised how much I like it. But my point is, you don't have to do anything right now.
Okay.
Okay, I have a question. If we say we sold our house and we made a nice profit, my question is, do you buy another house or do you rent?
I think that depends on your finances. When you sell your house, if you have lived in your house 2 years or longer at this point in time.
25.
Okay, well, what I mean by at this point in time, depending on who's in office and how they change our taxation.
Mhm.
So at this point in time, one person gets $250,000 tax-free off the differential of their house. So let's say you bought a house for $200,000 25 years ago, and it's now worth $500,000. So the 200,000 plus the 250,000 is 450,000. So you would only be paying the gains tax on 50,000. And
Okay.
so that's a good thing to know, and that's something to talk over with your financial advisor. And so if you need to have lived in that house for the last 2 years as your primary residence, though. So if you have a house if you have two houses.
No, I was just saying, like making decisions of downsizing. I know the market is crazy right now, so you sell your house, but say I want to move to Denver, but to be near my son, would we rent? That's the question I'm really at a loss for.
I would work with your financial advisor on that, because personally, the Denver market is just outrageous too.
It's terrible.
Yeah, Denver has taken off for different reasons than Phoenix, but that Denver market has been just on fire with young people moving in because of their industries that they brought in. So I think your financial advisor would be a good person to talk that over with. And renting might be a really good option for a long time, because you've taken a lot of money and then sock some of that money away as in some investments that are safe and live off of those investments. But I definitely, that's not for me to judge your finances there, but that's a really good
Because then you
discussion.
see you're starting to have changes in your life, and then you buy a house, which with the market so much, you would put all your money into a new house, which would not make sense to me. But then your rent is very high too. It's tricky.
But it does give you options. If you're renting, it gives you options if you think you have to move again or that kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah,
So, and then you
That's-
have to decide, do you like where you're living? And if you
Yeah.
haven't lived in Denver,
yeah,
anyway, those are the discussions that I would have.
yeah, that's my big problems.
Carol, is that capital gains you were talking about? If it has to be, let's see. The 250, but isn't it different if there's a married couple?
It is, then it's up to 500,000. Or no, it's 400,000.
400, so 250 exemption for a single and 400 for a
Oh.
married couple.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and are you are married?
Yes, I
mean,
am.
Oh,
Yeah,
that would already you,
it would be better.
yeah, right.
So you might not pay any.
Yeah.
You might
Right.
not-
That sounds good.
Right.
I
And
didn't,
you can do that. Like you move, let's just pretend you move to Denver and you purchase another house and you live there for 2 years. Same thing. Right now, that's how our taxes are.
uh-huh.
So as long as you live in the house for the last 2 years, another possibility, and this is another reason to talk with your financial advisor. Another possibility is to buy the second house using a reverse mortgage. And so you don't put all of your money in that house, and nor do you have payments on that house. And so that's a solid way to do it, because sometimes you keep a lot more of your money like that. But again, we're talking to your financial advisor about.
Mm.
It just depends on your situation.
Yeah, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Carol, can I ask a question?
Absolutely, please do.
What's your take on long-term health insurance in this whole transition picture?
That's a really good point. Every financial advisor will tell you it's really a great deal to buy long-term healthcare insurance. I think, again, with that one, you'd want to work with your financial advisor on that. There are so many different kinds. When we bought it for my mother, it was just strictly long-term care. And so she paid a lot for that, but it only pays, I'm thinking, $60 a day for her care. So percentage wise, it's not a very big percentage for what we pay for her care, but it is helpful. How's that? The other thing is so it also paid to having caregivers come into our house. Remember I told you she lived with us? And it also paid $50 a day for those caregivers. And again, that wasn't near enough. That didn't even begin to cover the cost of these caregivers coming into our home to help take care of her. Now, I do understand that there are different policies now that are part insurance and part long-term care insurance. So those are things that I would ask people. If you can self-insure, that's always a good thing too, but you can't be guaranteed you're going to be able to do that, because then you think about when I just ran into this woman and she's young and her husband has Alzheimer's and she still has kids that are in high school. And so how do you take care of this person that's going to need a whole lot more than you can do, and this other situation? The other thing is we keep living so long. I mean, some of us don't, but a lot of us, we have more people over 100 worldwide than we've ever had ever. And so again, that's a financial advisor question, and there are so many ways to sell it that one might make good sense for you.
Okay.
Did that help? That seemed kind of vague.
It helps a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. And the cost, while it didn't cover everything, it was just a little bit to help with the finances.
Right. Or if the other thing is if something was more catastrophic, it might help with more of it. So I don't know that the newer policies is that that's it in a nutshell. I don't know the newest policies. And I know that they've changed them to help cover that, but
Okay.
I'd check them out.
Okay, thank you.
Just a little comment that capital gains exclusion on the sale of a primary residence. If you're a married couple, it's 500,000.
Oh, it is 500,000. Okay, so that one up. Thank you, Marge.
Thank you.
Yeah, with that long-term healthcare, my sister had it, and she didn't activate it because she kept waiting and waiting for things to get worse. And as it turned out, her husband died and she never used it.
Oh,
And
wow.
that was a big mistake. So I just thought I'd throw that in. So-
Actually, I'm really glad you did throw that in because that's really valid. And so even when someone starts needing care at home, it's a good thing to activate that. And because it sets a lot of other timelines in place too. So especially if you're married to a veteran or you are a veteran, that also starts the timeline for a lot of the veterans benefits.
Oh.
And so that's kind of an interesting thing too. And depending on when they served, and if they served during a wartime or not, they will also qualify for other benefits from different veterans' pots of money, is the way I'd put it that way. So if you're in that situation, shoot me a message and I'll connect you with this veterans group that's what they do, is they get money for assisted living and for medical for veterans. Again, I don't do it. I just know that it's done.
Mhm.
Okay, thanks.
Very, very helpful information. Thank you for everything.
You're very welcome. I hope I enlightened some things. It's food for thought, if nothing else.
Well, does anyone else have any questions, comments? I mean, just. You
Yeah,
can,
I wanted to know what your contact information is.
Oh.
Okay, so my phone number is 6.
Oh.
You want me to put it in chat? Do we do that?
Well,
Just go ahead because I'd like it too.
Okay, it's 623 261 4466. And my best email is CJ Phillips, and that's with 2 L, 4444 @gmail.com.
and Carol mentioned, because I'd mentioned it to her, that the book, well, I think is very good. It's $5. And if you want to let me know, and you could just email me, I will get the books from Carol and I will, we'll worry about the money. If I can just, I will deliver them. How's that? Because we'll save money on postage and it'll
One
get me
other
to the
thing-
house.
One other thing I wanted to offer you guys is transitionswithdignity.com.
Mm-hmm.
So write that one down, transitionswithdignity.com. And in the resources bar, it will have a lot of resources for you. So when I talked about getting your financial stuff together, it'll have you just print it out, and there's a couple different things, and it will give you so many ideas of what finances you already have that you forgot, and how to put that in order, and how to put that in the book. Or I can't remember all the details of things that I had for you. If you're wanting to compare communities, for example, there's a sheet there that allows you to compare 3 different communities. And so obviously you could print that out and compare 6 if you wanted. So those kinds of things, there's a lot there that's free for you to go to and access.
Very good.
Yeah, in the book, each section she'll talk about something, And then she'll say, well, for some more information for a worksheet for this section, she'll refer it back to the website. So I thought that was very helpful. And then also, you haven't really mentioned this, but when I got the book from Carol, she had given me this list of webinars that I'm trying to see if you can see that. And that came inside the book, and she just had one the other day, and I was on another one. I couldn't attend it, but she has webinars scheduled every single month through right now through December, and they're all different things. Getting the most out of selling your home, can mom live with me, downsizing, moving tips, facts on dementia, and December, I'm never moving. I love that one. Right.
You have no idea how many people say that.
How about this? Never say never, because that's what will happen if you say I'm never doing something. That's what.
So those webinars are on my website, and they'll just connect you with the YouTube for that.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Awesome. So like I said, just let me know, and I will get the books from Carol. I'll get them to you. They're just $5, and I thought it was very interesting. It's very quick read, and it was a lot of information. I thought it was very helpful.
put me down. I want one.
Thank you.
Okay.
And Carol, where are you located? Scottsdale?
No, I live in Awatuki too.
Oh, okay.
I live on Cathedral Rock, behind, it's 21st and Chandler. I live behind the Baptist church.
Oh,
Oh,
I know
yeah.
where that is.
Yeah.
Nice. That's
So I have the house that's on the corner with the flagpole.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, the one who said she wanted a book.
Judy Betka.
Judy, because I didn't recognize your screen name, so.
I know, it's kind of weird.
Okay, it's like,
I don't have my name like everybody else does.
who's Danju? I just.
Dan, that happens to be my husband.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Now I'm
Take one
clear.
too.
Okay.
Sylvia, I'll take one.
It didn't spell it. It just says
Oh, Doris?
J-U. Doesn't say D-Y or I.
Anyone else want a book? Since
I do.
Who is,
I do. Susie.
is that Susie?
Yep.
Anyone
No.
else?
Joanne too, also.
Ann, okay.
Interested.
Anyone
I
else?
wanted to, I
Oh,
wanted
go.
to know, do you have a website, Carol?
Yeah, where do we
It's
go
called
on?
transitionswithdignity.com.
A lot of good stuff out there.
Thank you.
You don't have to deliver the book to me. I'll meet you somewhere or something. Just call me.
Well, you don't live in Scottsdale, do you?
No.
Okay, well then.
I don't live in Awatuki though.
Oh, you don't?
No, I live off of Ray Road and the 101. But I'll just come over to Awatuki. I have a lot of different friends that I'll come over there.
Are you going to the meeting next week by any chance?
Next week?
Hmm?
No, but,
Oh,
you
okay.
know, but
Well, I can just let you know when I have it and we can work it out.
yeah,
How's that?
that'll be great.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else before we have anything before we go? I think we did pretty good. Staying to our hour. Pretty good. Good for us. Yay. And again,
Thank you for having me. I
Thank you
appreciate
so
getting to
much.
speak
I
with you.
really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a lot of great information. And I mean, when we start meeting again, I mean, our committee, maybe they can have you come in person sometime.
Yeah,
too.
in person would have been so great. I think a
Mhm.
lot more people would have come.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
Well-
people are getting zoomed out, I guess.
Well,
Yeah.
and I'd love to have a smaller topic and cover it more in depth for you. too.
Okay.
You know, this was kind of like, okay, I'm going to cover this whole book and let you know all these topics available, but
Right.
a pretty deep dive into each one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, that's something we can certainly let our social committee, I mean, starting, like I said, in September, we're going online, in person only. So yeah, definitely. I know Bonnie's on that committee. Let's see, would
What committee?
you on the
Oh,
social?
the social, yeah.
I'm on it too.
Oh, yeah, Susie, of course. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, well, are we good, everyone? I mean, any last thoughts, comments?
No, it was interesting.
It
Thank you.
was
Okay.
wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Really
You guys-
appreciate it, Carol.
You're
Yeah.
welcome, and thank you for having us.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Okay.
Bye.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Sylvia, for leading us.
Next week.
All right, thanks.
Mhm.
Bye.